When I first dived into the world of investing, I was overwhelmed by information, from technical analysis to fundamental analysis. Some of the advice was complicated and seemed to contradict each other. And it took me years before I was able to hone in on my own investing strategy that worked for me. And so today I want to share with you 5 ideas that I wish I knew before I started saving and investing. And so if you are someone that wants to make money in the markets, this will save you years on your investing journey. Let's get started. Number 1, saving and investing is actually easy, but taking the money out is even easier. There were so many times when I saved money, tens of thousands of dollars, and I invested it, only to 1 year or 2 years later take it out to go on a vacation or buy a course or focus on some other investment opportunity. I thought to myself that, I would always be able to make that amount of money back again in a few months anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. Flash forward a decade and my portfolio was still hovering around $100,000, even though I had been saving and working. It wasn't until 2 years ago, when I got married, that I got really serious about investing, and I decided that I would never take money out of my portfolio and would be as invested as possible unless there was a underlying change in the assumptions that I was making about the market. It only took 2 years, but I'm already over $200,000 in terms of my portfolio invested. Imagine if you were serious in the beginning about investing and you never took a dime out of the index fund, how much money you would have today. And so the lesson here is that once the money goes in, it does not come out. Number 2, I thought I had to live like I was broke. In my first few years investing, I didn't even have internet. I chose not to get the internet because I wanted to save that extra dollar and put it in the markets. I lived like I was broke. And I would stay in the office at my school working until 10 p.m. because that was the only way I would have Wi-Fi. And it wasn't until I met, again, my wife, my more reasonable other half, that I realized how dumb that was. What was the point of self-deprivation in my best years, only to live marginally better in an uncertain future? At that moment in time, it was kind of like a light bulb started shining in my mind, and I was like, okay, I actually need to set saving and investing goals that make sense in the long term. Not only that, I should be setting income goals and figuring out ways to make more money. And if I meet the income goals, if I meet my savings goals and my investing goals, then I should be enjoying my money that's left over after paying myself first. And so I actually started living nicer. I took my wife on vacation and we went to Yunnan together for 3 weeks. It was great, it was fantastic. We went to Tibet, it was fantastic again, and it just reminded me that life just isn't about the money, right? It's about the relationships and the people we meet and the experiences that we have. And so you can be on the path towards financial independence and live a good life. Number 3, I'm sorry to break it to you, but you're not the next Warren Buffett. There were times when I felt like the next Warren. Everything was green. I felt like a champ. I was up 20%, 30%, 100% on an investment, but all it takes is 1 or 2 big 50% drops to bring you back to earth until you chase the next high again, that is. And so that pattern of investing, of chasing the next biggest gain only to lose half of it again, pretty much guarantees subpar return in the stock market. And it's because the math doesn't work, right? If you're down 50%, you need a 100% gain to break even again, right? And so if in your mind you're like, it's okay if I'm down 50% because I'll be up 50, 60% again in the future. That's a surefire way of losing money, right? Because you haven't understood the math. If you understand that you can't actually beat the market because you don't have the technical know-how, you don't understand accounting, you don't want to learn how finance works, then, aim for average market returns and own the S&P 500 index fund, right? Follow Warren Buffett's advice. Don't bet what you have for what you don't need. And if you want to learn accounting, if you want to learn finance, if you want to pay attention to the fundamentals of an industry and of a specific company, then yes, go and buy individual stocks that will outperform for the long term, but do so with a smaller amount of money so you are not betting the farm. Number 4, your single years are your best years for investing. It's when you can literally spend no money that you can save a lot of money. But that all changes when you have a family. Families cost money to maintain, and you might be thinking, you know what, like me and my family and my kid, we're going to be living as frugally as possible, spending as little money as possible. But I don't know about you, but with me, with my family, I am more inclined to buy better things for them, because my whole reason for making money is to give them a better life. And what is the purpose of making money if at the end of the day I can't even buy my son a toy or good formula, or take my wife out because she's been like really tired and working really hard taking care of our son, right? What's the point of not being able to do that if the whole purpose of investing is to be able to do that? I today wish that I had saved more in my single years and let things compound, because when you are young, and the next best time is today, right? When you are young, your money has the most time to compound. And so the money you save when you are young is literally worth the most to you in your latter years, because it has that many more years to compound. The money you save now will again be exponentially worth more than the money you save a year, 5 years, 10 years from now. To number 5, which is despite number 4, despite your single years having the highest saving potential, having a family actually doesn't make you poor. When I was single, I used to think that, having a family must cost money, and so it's expensive to have a family. And so if I wanted to be financially free, then I shouldn't have a family. In fact, I should delay having a family until I have some kind of financial security. That's how I used to think. Well, if you look at the most successful people, they almost always have a family or had a family. It's clear that having a wife and kids doesn't make you poor. It doesn't hurt your chance of making money. Now, if you get a divorce, that's a different story, which is why your spouse is probably the single most important decision that you can make throughout your life. And thankfully, I think I made a pretty good decision. What happens when you get a family? If it works out, it increases your drive towards action. It increases your chances of success because you're taking more action. And you feel an urgency for increasing your income, for fixing your finances, that you don't feel when you are single. In fact, I made my first YouTube video in 2016. And so to give you perspective, this is like when Graham Stephan started on YouTube, right? And look how big he is today. But I only started getting serious about YouTube when my wife became pregnant. I know, I'm ordinarily very undisciplined, and it takes like something big to happen before I take any action, which is not a recommendation I have for anyone. But I can comfortably say that I've now changed for the better, okay? And it only took a year until this channel was monetized. And it took another 6 months after that before I made my first dollar and before my YouTube AdSense actually hit my bank account. But you get the point. It helps to know that someone is there unconditionally supporting you, right? You have even more reason not to let them down, and so you take action. And so I am speaking to, I guess, the men or women out there that want something better for their lives but can't bring themselves to do it. And I'm telling you, once you have a family that relies on you, that depends on you, you're going to do the things that are required to get the life that you want for them, if you love them and they love you back, right? That's the precondition. And it might sound weird, but the single biggest reason I make more money now than ever, and I have more money in my portfolio now than ever, is because of my wife. And to her, I'm always grateful. So what does all of this mean for you? Well, pursue relationships that make it easier to reach shared financial goals. Start saving precisely now, the precise amount of money you need for your future. But enjoy the rest of your money because you are living life. Don't become overconfident in the markets and never take money out from your portfolio, unless obviously because you're retiring soon. Okay, with that in mind, if you like these kinds of videos, like and subscribe, because on this channel we talk about how to give your family the life you believe they deserve.